to vote on who will chair for this meeting.
We'll start the meeting.
Roll call.
Okay.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Angeli,
Probably back.
Mr.
Here.
Barnett,
Here.
Mr. Brabsky,
Here.
Mr. Bree,
Here.
Ms. Redstow, Mr. Walters,
Here.
Ms. Way.
Here.
And Mr. Zelman,
Here.
and Chair Partington's absent. You have a four.
So we nominate someone?
Yes.
Yeah. I nominated that my chair, chair and vice chair is absent.
And also civil engineer.
I second, Craig Barnett seconds. Any other nominations?
Yeah, anybody else but Rob.
Can we vote? Yes. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
I just remembered, I've got it.
Get over there.
You're the one that wanted this session.
Thank you, staff.
One. You gonna help me out here?
Absolutely.
Now, he's a parliamentarian, so he has to. Good morning, everybody, or is it afternoon?
Afternoon.
How time flies. Guess we need to get the official roll call.
Yes, sir. We already cleaned. No, roll call be done.
So next is approval of
to
agenda.
the approval of the agenda, then the approval of minutes.
Okay, I just get my glasses on here. Okay. Everybody's seen the agenda, and let's everybody that approves the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody that opposes the agenda, looks like it's unanimously approved. We need the approval of the previous meeting minutes, August 4th, 2025. Has everybody looked at them, have any comments or modifications to same?
Move to approve as written.
Okay.
Second.
Everybody in favor of approving the previous meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone that opposes the approval, say nay. Unanimously approved. See, I don't see anything under old business, but if anybody have,
I have a question about what you, so one thing you brought up in the last meeting was about around sidewalks. Was there an opportunity to share information between the sidewalk projects and the building permit offices? So they could update their records on what parts of the street we're gonna get sidewalks associated with new building? Was anything carried forward on that after the last meeting? She's checking.
anybody,
Do you understand what I was bringing up? So it's like, so they've done surveys of where they needed new sidewalks? Okay, they've done surveys where they needed new sidewalks, and then the city permit office knows where they're tearing down houses and putting in new houses. Was there a way to, where they're putting in a new house, was there a way to update that the new builder's gonna be putting in a sidewalk there, so the city's not trying to put in a sidewalk at that location?
Yeah, you want me to?
Huh?
So Anthony Fajardo, I'm the Director of Development Services. So yes, all that information is in our land development management program in Acela. I wasn't aware of the request, so we can set something up, that's not a problem. We often do that anyway. We've had, especially in the downtown where you have a lot of large scale projects or even large scale projects around the city where Public Works and DSD will get together and make sure they're not redundancies and overlaps.
The reason why, it looked like there was an opportunity there. Like, I represent Victoria, I'm part of the Victoria Park team, so, there's lots of houses going on in Victoria Park, lots of houses getting sidewalk in front of them. So, it'd be nice to mark that as a builder, new builder responsibility, and you don't have to worry about it. That's all.
That's a good question on that particular topic. Anthony, since you're here, does the code require for new construction to put a sidewalk in the front?
It requires it under most circumstances. There are some caveats where it doesn't have to do it. So one of those would be if you're in a neighborhood predominantly didn't have sidewalks, or if they're dead end streets, so like the finger aisles, they've objected to putting in sidewalks because there's constrained space, I believe, and they just don't want them for whatever reason. Also, if a civic association goes through a process to basically formalize whether they do or do not want sidewalks, they can do it that way as well. There might be one that I'm missing, but that's pretty much fundamental.
Can the builder then apply for a variance? Is that what happens in the process, or?
So it's not really a variance. There is an allowance to request not to do it outside of those circumstances because we didn't think we could anticipate every situation. So for instance, there was a request on Lauderdale to not have to install sidewalks because they just felt like we don't have sidewalks, why do we need a sidewalk to get to nowhere type thing? And I believe for the time being that goes to Board of Adjustment, but not as a variance request. It's just an allowance.
So Karen Warfel's been here and done a presentation on sidewalks, and there's programs that moving forward. And part of the program is to fill in where there's sidewalks that start and stop and start and stop. So my neighborhood along Northeast 18th Street, we have that problem on the north side of 18th.
Okay.
On the south side, there was never a sidewalk, except now there is because a new home got built. So we've created a problem, in my opinion. We didn't have a sidewalk, now we've got a sidewalk, and then we don't have sidewalks. Something seems off.
Yeah, so there used to be a broader exemption for when you put in sidewalks. It was more at the discretion of the city engineer, I believe.
Which?
The city engineer.
No.
The city commission expressed concerns over some inconsistencies with that program as well. So they took that authority away and then put in the criteria. But the problem with the criteria is, like I said, you don't always, the context is king in those situations, right? So if a developer comes in and on the face of it meets the criteria, staff tells them they have to do it and they don't push back on it, the sidewalk gets installed. So sounds like that's probably what happened in your situation.
Okay. Thanks. I understand.
If you could help follow up on that, tying the building permits to the sidewalk project. Bottom line is I don't want the city to have to spend money where it doesn't have to. If we can get the builder to do it, let's get the builder to do it.
Yep. Do that.
There's also another concern too. There's quite a few neighborhoods that have the old 3.5, 4 foot wide sidewalks, and it to be consistent with the standard of 5 foot wide. Is that program still active in trying to do that, or is it more concerned with probably rightfully so installing sidewalks where there's an absence of, say?
Well, for DSD, the only thing we're looking at is when there's a requirement to install a sidewalk. We're not handling the program to connect the gaps and to upgrade any of the infrastructure. So it'd probably be transportation mobility, but I'm not sure how that program's functioning.
Okay, just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Any other questions, any other old business? Okay, right along. Under new business, we have, the first one is update on the new city hall.
So good afternoon, my name is Ben Rogers, I'm an Assistant City Manager for the City of Fort Lauderdale.
We won't hold that against you.
I appreciate that.
That's why I don't do it anymore.
And I've been kind of leading some of the initial efforts on the City Hall project. So I'm gonna start from late spring and work our way to where we're at right now, and then take any questions you have. So on May 15th, the city received an unsolicited proposal from Meridian to have a P3 project to develop or deliver a City Hall. On June 3rd, the City Commission reviewed that proposal, accepted it, and created a 60-day competition period for other firms to submit like bids for the same project. On June 30th, separate apart from the unsolicited process, the city went to the commission and they approved an owner's representative agreement with Jacobs Engineering to serve as the city's owner's representative. And that contract has 4 different phases: pre-design, design, pre-construction, post-construction. So more or less, Jacobs is in our passenger seat for the whole project duration. We did that on a task-based oriented contract, meaning if we needed service, we draft up the task order and we use it. But we're not obligated to certain elements or certain requirements along the way. A good example is in the solicitation, we had site selection as a potential consideration. The city commission gave us direction on where the site selection is, so we would not be utilizing Jacobs for that task. The June 30th, or the June 3rd acceptance and 60-day period, competition period ended on August 5th, at which time the city received a total of 6 unsolicited proposals. The first one from Meridian, and then 5 additional solicitations. Right now, we are reviewing those from a lens of qualifications, experience, corporate structure, financial wherewithal, compliance with Florida statute, unsolicited proposal, reference checks with past clients and public agencies, verification of comparable projects that they put inside of their responses. And we're hoping to have that information compiled and available to present to the City Commission on October 7th at a conference presentation. And at that point, we'd be seeking feedback from the City Commission on next steps. If they want to move all 6 of the proposals forward, if they want to shortlist, if they want to take a different path forward. But ours will be kind of a high-level qualification experience type of evaluation matrix for their consideration. So that's where we stand at this time.
Questions?
My question was, is what direction did the city give on location? I don't know if I might have missed that.
So right now, we're working at the existing City Hall site, which is 100 North Andrews is our
That's what I thought what they
our proposed
did.
location. Yep.
Will the city invite the community out one more time to say of all the input that we receive and the recommendation from the infrastructure task force, this is what we came up with? Will we see that?
So I don't know if we'll see exactly what you're asking for, but there will be a series of public meetings along the way. So obviously October 7th will be a checkpoint. Depending on what direction comes out of October 7th, depends on what our next timeline and milestone would be.
What's October 7th going to contain?
That is when we're going to provide an update to the City Commission at a conference meeting on the qualifications experience matrix that we're putting together of all the proposals that we received.
If I may interject something on that, I'd like to make sure that we could have a presentation
Absolutely.
on that before it goes
Absolutely.
too far.
Absolutely.
But he's just talking about qualifying. They might just come up with a short list of bidders.
Yeah, but I want to make sure we get our bid in.
After you
and find
select the
out.
final, since we worked a lot as a group on what the requirements going into the design, we'd like to be able to provide that input to whoever's going to need it.
Got it. Yeah, I understand the request, and I think that depending on what direction is given out of October 7th would determine if I can come back at the next meeting and provide an update, or if there's additional time needed to make other decisions and move it along. But I understand the desire and interest of this board to be included as we move forward.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And I just want to make sure that the community don't feel that the 4 or 5 meetings that we held throughout the city wasn't a waste of time. you asked us to come, we gave you input, but we want to see if any of our suggestion was included. And I know and you know that if you give them everything they ask for, City Hall will be from here to Pompano. But I just want to make sure that they recognize that the input was needed, asked for, and provided.
Yeah, and I can confirm, Roosevelt, that we've talked with each one of these proposers and we've shared the information that this board and the public have put forth. It is still listed on our webpage for the City Hall project. When people would call and ask about how to provide a proposal or if there's anything that is important to the city, we redirected them to all those documents. So I think we leveraged that input that we asked for from the community in this board.
I appreciate you.
Okay. Jim?
Ben, thanks for coming. Your review right now, there's 6, if I understood correctly. Will you eliminate some of those before you go to the October 7th meeting? I mean, will you just say they're not even close to the others and just not bring them forward, or?
I think what we will do is bring all of them forward to
Bring
the
all
commission,
forward.
but that matrix would then clearly identify who we
You'll
think is
rank them
qualified.
maybe or something?
I don't think we'll rank, but I think it will just be a matrix that will have, the key components of the proposal. And it could be a plus minus, or it could be yellow, red, green, or it could just be statements that are made that the city commission can take into consideration.
And is there a are there numbers being tossed in these?
Not at this point. We want to, that's one of the things we want to be cognizant of is if we are going to move forward with 6, that's fine, but that will take additional time to go through the same process with all 6.
Yeah.
So we want to do the kind of qualifications experience lens, let the commission give us direction on please move forward with all 6 or move forward with 2, don't move forward at all.
Yeah.
Hear that from the city commission, and then we'll engage into the next level of review, which is the financial.
And finally, can you share with us at this point, do you feel like what you're looking at reviewing, there are some pretty good presentations there, good offers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again,
You can share that?
one of the challenges right now is that, we didn't mask the building. We didn't say the minimum specifications of the building because this came through as an unsolicited proposal. So right now we're looking at some apples, oranges, and bananas. And so one of the things that we'll probably end up doing after the October 7th meeting, if we move forward, would be to try to standardize the information and then go through the financial review process.
Yeah.
When making your comparison, how will you compare a going out for bid versus 350, P3?
So in this process, we won't compare that. We're just comparing the bids that we have received and comparing what their qualifications, experience levels with like projects are.
So all the bids that will be talked about on the 6th are proposals that was submitted without being requested.
That's correct. Our presentation will review the proposals that were received. That does not preclude the commission or anyone from providing different direction of the next step. But this will just review the unsolicited proposals.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was saying, we want to provide our input at the most efficient place in the process. I'm not really sure where that would be. I want to provide that input to whoever's going to be actually doing the final design. I don't know whether we should have them do one round of design and then let us provide input, or you'll have to help us there. We don't want to take up too much time, we understand, or people's money, time together. So help us figure out the best place to provide that input. We did spend a lot of time gathering a lot of input. We have what we officially provided, and we also have anecdotal information we got from the meetings with the different city constituents. So we just want to make sure that all that information gets transferred forward and then let the people take forward what they need out of it, right? But again, help us pick out the right place to present it.
Go ahead, Jim.
So, just to be clear, we were asked to provide guiding principles. That's what we provided. When you say design, to me, that means something completely different. So, I'm not going to tell them how to design their building. We developed guiding principles and we said these are the things we want you to take into consideration as you make your proposals and bring them forward in your design. I don't think it's our job to design.
No. But, for example, one of the inputs we got from multiple people is they wanted the design to include outdoor space. Just concepts for them to consider when they're doing the design. Not designing.
That's design.
That's designing? Okay. Well,
We've provided a document for them. I think that's all we can provide.
okay.
And then if they have questions, they can maybe reach out, but.
Yeah, bring them here. Let's
Yeah.
talk about our guiding principles and, how we see those coming
Pretty
through.
high level guiding principles. We provide a very high level principles.
That
what
was
we're
our
tasked to
task.
do.
That's what we were tasked to do, but we gathered more than we provided.
Could you state, just for not only us, but the public who may be listening in, as far as the city hall, the old city hall being considered and trying to put another city hall there versus somewhere else at another location?
How we came to that decision?
Yes, I wanted to make sure, because I know there's a lot of people ask, are they gonna utilize the existing city hall thing? And I said, well, it's kinda foggy right now, depending on other locations that may be more strategically located, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we did put together a list of city properties that we think could be opportunity for a city hall. We also presented to the commission land swap opportunities or other strategies, maybe purchase a building rather than construct. And the general takeaway was to move forward with a new building and to plan on it at the 100 North Andrews site. That doesn't mean that that's the final decision. There's still ability for it to be moved, but for our planning purposes and what we're working on, the existing site is the site we're choosing.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the clarity. Go ahead, Jim.
More questions? So Ben, in that process, was the TAM building, the value of that was that appraised at all? Do you know? Because the city owns that piece of property, correct?
Yes, the property at 290 Northeast 3rd Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things we did is we looked at, again, the massing of the building and how the apartments come together, and if people vacate buildings, is that space available? So for the 290 building, we appraised it not as part of the City Hall project, but about a year before we appraised it as a concept of moving the transportation team out and having a 50-year lease on that site. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I could get it for you if you want it.
It was part of the equation.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Don't forget about parking.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the benefits of the 100 North Andrews site is you have the majority of the parking already established.
The others, okay.
If there's no other questions, I'll again welcome this board to go to the city website. It's Spotlight FTL. All the documents are underneath there under the City Hall page, and there's even a notification tab at the top that if you register for it, anytime there's updated information, it will send you an email or ping you to keep you aware of all the new information.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here we go. Update on the police station. Anybody here from the city that'd like to comment? Go ahead.
So that's me, Anthony Fajardo, Director of Development Services. I wasn't sure what you were all looking for in terms of presentation. I have a PowerPoint. It's kind of a conglomeration of the updates that were given to the City Commission, a combination of what I provided as well as WJE, our third-party peer reviewer. So this is maybe supposed to. I can go through that as quickly or slowly as you like. It's about 47 slides, so.
Before you do that, could you give us a brief update on the last year's July, I can't remember if it was the 8th or something, where the roof had suffered the.
Yeah, so that's all in here.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all included here. I've got like a little bit of background on where we are with the original deflection, which is almost done. And then where we are with the rest of the building, which was the additional request from the City Commission.
He's looking at structurally, I'm looking to see who's paying for that.
No, that's,
I got that, I'll talk
that's
about that.
what we are looking at.
Who's paying for that? And as a project manager, when are we gonna be able to get in there and get, not have to get out of the other leases that we have across the city?
Yeah, so fundamentally, the money is associated with errors and omissions, right? So we have a clause in our contract with AECom, who is the architect of record, for errors and omissions. What we've been doing is putting anything and everything that falls under a possible error and omission, whether it's obvious or not, onto a list. We've been giving it to them just to keep them updated. It's pretty lengthy. It's got the stuff you see in this presentation as well as some other things that were just kind of, they missed something on this, locker room or whatever, so we added that as well. The intent is for us to recoup a majority, if not all of the money under errors and omissions. There is a 2% clause in that contract that basically says that we're responsible for the first 2%, but we've blown way past that. So we are working with the architect on doing a amendment to the contract to see if we can excise the deflection issues into a separate category, so it's not subject to the 2%. But ultimately, it's gonna be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's probably gonna result in a similar, if not the same number.
Yeah, I for one would like to make sure that there are safeguards on the continuing police station without someone arbitrarily, maybe that's a little cruel, but changing the approved plans to add, extend the roof that supposedly causes the loss of the structural strength between the steel and the concrete.
Why don't I go through it real quick? I'll
Okay.
skip over some of the slides that are probably just like background information that you might not be interested in because you probably are well aware.
Okay, go for it.
And maybe that'll answer your question. So like I said, I got some background information. I'm gonna talk about the initial deflection, the third-party peer review from WJE, and then where we are with the different findings. And if I haven't answered any questions by the time right now, we'll talk about it then. So this is just background on the project. In 2019, the voters approved the bond, and then we broke ground in 2023. 191,000 square foot building, 3 stories, and a 200,000 square foot garage, including the shooting range. So the deflection was discovered in March of 2024. Basically what happened was on the roof of the 3rd floor, when we were putting the precast panels, or when Moss was putting the precast panels on the building, the weight of the panel was not properly calculated on that cantilever part of the roof. The construction type was originally steel, they went to concrete, and when they did the switch, they didn't account for that change in the weight. So that's really what caused the issue. And what happened was that gap where the windows were gonna go, it started to shrink. And so when they got to a certain point, the window would not fit. So that's how we became aware of it. Between then and 2024, there were May of 2024, there were several meetings held with the city staff regarding the status of it. Our city's building official and the building department were involved in a lot of those conversations. And basically, TT, Thornton Tomasetti, who is the engineer of record, they came up with an initial fix, which I'll get into in just a second. Oh, and just so you're aware, you probably know this already, we also at this point brought in a third-party engineer, Latkus Yohalam Engineering, LYE. Staff did that in an abundance of caution to get a third opinion of someone from the outside who wasn't involved in the project to see if these fixes from TT were gonna work.
Question.
Yeah.
Cost for that independent survey, our engineering, can we include that in the emissions?
Yeah, so them as well as WJE, we've included in that, and they've committed to paying for both of those.
Yeah.
So just to orientate you on the building, the top of the screen is the north side, that's Broward Boulevard, where you see those arrows, that's a general location of where the deflection occurred. And basically what happened, this is on the roof, you can see those cracks, those are aligned with the beam that's underneath the roof slab. So this was these are 2 of the 3 initial fixes. So The one on the left, those are additional column enhancements, basically haunches. The idea there was to shorten the length of the cantilever so that you wouldn't have as much weight pivoting on that one point. And then on the ground floor, there was additional enhancements to the foundation because when they ran the calculations, they felt that those need to be improved as well. So they excavated the floor, put in additional rebar and additional concrete. In addition, on the roof itself, these upturned beams were placed on the roof and then pinned in to those support areas, again, to allow that additional strength for the roof so it wouldn't deflect anymore. And by the way, the deflection of the facility is being monitored. So we take a survey of it like every so often. I think it was pretty much weekly. Now it's gone down to like monthly, and then it's going to go to quarterly and yearly.
We got a question here.
Yeah, so that slide with the red, that showed the red column addition, that extended all the way down, didn't it?
No.
Oh, it did not?
No, so that's what's interesting here. So those columns, which you can't see illustrated in the graphic, at the bottom of that column, there's actually a gap. The whole idea was to widen the column, and then it's structurally tied into the column, but it's not resting on the floor because there is nothing underneath it. You don't want it to puncture through. But according to the engineers, that works just fine, and it's totally cool. So they did fill it, but it's not structurally tied at the bottom. It's just on the column itself and on the support above.
Let me ask you one question. The fact that that's the ability of the chair. It was realized that once this deflection occurred, that was the design strength going to be able to be back up to the design strength as opposed to the damaged, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Right. So I apologize just a little bit ahead of time. I'm not an architect or an engineer. I'm a department director, and I have my background in planning and geography.
We will let you go home safe tonight.
Yeah, the way it was explained to me, yes, it will. So everything, or WJE, who's the second third-party engineer, they're saying that everything can result in the building functioning as it was originally designed. So Category 5 building would be fine.
That's easy to say because I know that once that concrete has separated and moved from the steel, reinforced steel, the fact that I don't think there's a way of attaining back the strength. That's just with my little experience. I've seen, well, a few of them have had problems. And then the cause of it was the added weight that was tacked on, if you will.
Yeah, you can see it right here. See the image on the left? So that L-shaped,
Right.
that's the precast concrete panel that resulted in the weight moving it.
So the fact is that you're not going to be able to have the strength as long as that strength is in an area that's going to be conducive to other parts of the building. So that, if there's no sense going through a repair job if we're still going to have a dead beast here.
So all I can do is pair it with the engineers are telling me, and WJE has assured me that if everything is addressed the way they feel it needs to be addressed, the building will function exactly as it's designed. They've even said that it might even be overbuilt to a certain extent.
Well, I think I could take that more than. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
sorry.
nice, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when we got to the point where, we put in those additional, I'll call them structural enhancements, the city commission had been looped in at that point, and they had directed staff to find another third-party engineer, and that's how we found WJE. We interviewed, I think, four of the firms. They came out as the one that we felt most comfortable with, and their work officially started on October, although they did start some work in September.
Did one third party replace the other, or
Yes,
we don't have to?
LYE was taken off of it, so we thanked them for their services. WJE reviewed everything that they did along with what TT did. They agreed with the enhancements that they provided, but they felt there needed to be more.
I got 1,000 damn questions. Go ahead.
All right, so WJE was asked to look at the entire building because we were dealing with the deflection that was actually a physical manifestation of a structural issue, they put it into phased approach. So phase one would only look at the deflection area, and then phase two, which is what we're in now, looks at the remainder of the building. So in December of 2024, they completed their phase one report. So what the basically was, they agreed with LYE and TT's initial findings that there were structural deficiencies of the building. They agreed with some of the enhancements that they put in, but they wanted additional enhancements to be done.
Okay, so this is what I was thinking.
So here, remember I said that there were, let's stand up for a second. So there were enhancements to these two columns originally, I showed in the graphic, and then there were those two upturned beams. What they wanted to see was all four columns to be enhanced on the third floor. They wanted column jackets on all the first floor columns, and then micropiles and caps for the foundation, some additional foundation work, and then on the roof, 4 upturned beams, not just the 2. So here you can kind of see inside view, crosscut, micropiles and caps, column jacket, there's the haunch, the upturned beams, and then there, in addition, they want to fiber reinforce the columns with a polymer reinforced fiber material, and then on the support beam up there. As far as phase one, that's where we are right now. Yes.
Is that only on the parameter of the building, or is it throughout, like, columns inside?
So right now we're just focused on the deflection area, so only on that north end of the building where you saw.
What's the likelihood? What's the
Yes.
percentage of this?
Sorry,
So what's like the percentage of that
the percentage?
holding up?
I'm told that
Thanks.
it's going to hold it just fine. So that, like I said, phase one only look at this. So those fiber reinforced wraps would be happening in these 4 locations, and then underneath those upturned beams.
Let me ask a question from that. Once that cantilever was put on the structure, and there was obviously remote effects from the windows that you mentioned. And I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was more than one window. There was several more windows that were affected from this. And has that been able to be taken care of as far as
We had to reorder the windows.
smaller windows?
Yeah, they were all fabricated outside the country, as a matter of fact. So the ones that fit were fine. They had to reorder the ones that would not fit. And so they're here. They're now in the building. You can see it when you drive it down. But I don't know if you've driven past it over the past year or so. There used to be plywood up there and kind of sealed it in.
I asked to visit the site, but have been refused.
We can do that. I don't see that as a problem. I'm not sure.
I didn't either, but I mean, I'm not here in cahoots with Sun Sentinel or anybody to give out. It's strictly to look at it.
Yeah.
I've got a little structural engineering history. And,
We can set. I'll talk to Paulina and we'll set something up.
but I might see something that nobody else has, or you can just tell me to shut up.
So the only thing I don't see, so they're redistributing the weight where the weight is being spread out. That they didn't affect that middle floor. I just don't understand
The floor.
that. So the top floor, they changed the structural. The way the weight is supported. The bottom,
Are you talking about the
pilings they
second
changed.
floor?
Yeah, the second floor, I just.
They said they couldn't identify any structural needs on the second floor. Those
Okay.
columns support everything it needs to.
Okay, I'm
And there was
trusting.
no movement on that portion. As a matter of fact, there was no movement on any portion of the building except for the roof where the deflection occurred. They monitored the whole
A
facade.
moment that was it was a moment that occurred because of the exit.
And then once it was arrested, they were able to support it all there. We had shoring up and all that stuff to keep it from moving while they did their work, and it doesn't seem to have moved again.
Those are-
with building top floor caused the windows not to fit, and you didn't readjust the top floor, but you readjusted the windows,
Yep.
is the damage still there?
No.
What happened to it?
So everything was stopped, right? So that bending moment of the roof was stopped. And so when they put in all these structural enhancement, it shouldn't move anymore. The windows are supposed to have a gap so that there's natural movement in any building. You can feel it when you're in tall buildings, and so you have to have a gap. The windows would not fit, so they had to have them remanufactured. They're slightly smaller than the original specs of the windows, but you can't notice it with the naked eye. It's moved so little you just can't see it. Yeah, don't lift it back up because it only moved like a fraction of an inch.
So it'll still take a Cat 5 hurricane.
Sorry?
So it will still take a Cat 5
That's what they
hurricane.
tell me. Yeah. Yeah, 3 engineering firms telling us the same thing, so hopefully clears the chart.
I'm sorry.
So we go through that.
So there's enough lanes on 95.
Okay, so here's where we're with phase 1 deflection. Like I said, everything's been done. So the first floor foundation was micropile installation and caps, epoxy injections, I failed to mention that, and then interior slab restoration. We got photographs of a big saw machine, excavating it all out. It's pretty messy. It's pretty clean. It looks like nothing happened now. First floor column jackets are complete. The column enhancements on the third floor are complete. The fiber reinforced polymer is being worked on now. It started last week. It'll take about a month to do that, just the cure times and all that kind of stuff. And then the upturned cantilever beams are complete. Those are the ones that showed you on the roof. So that brings us to phase 2. So the remaining portion of the building. So what WJE was basically looked at all the design loads, codes, the design criteria, the drawings, any applicable reports that were provided as part of the submittal, and then they used all that information to basically generate their draft report to the city, right? All that started in January of 2025 for phase 2, and then the draft report was given to us in April of 2025. So the findings were grouped into 3 categories: life safety, and I'll get into a little bit of that nomenclature in a second, serviceability and documentation, and then the resolution for the WJE was required responses from AECOM and TT. Basically, they drafted everything based on what they had at the time, right? So all the documentation they had. So as this process moved forward, they requested additional data and information on calculations. They requested clarifications on different types of building techniques and structural loads and how systems are interconnected and load transfer and all that stuff that I don't really know enough about to get into too technical. And so for life safety, so they were looking at this purely as it relates to the building functioning as a Category 5 project. What they said was there was no imminent danger of the building falling down. They didn't want to project that concept to everybody, so they sent a follow-up letter basically stipulating what they meant by life safety. So it's right there at the bottom. The building does not see this load on a daily basis, referring to high velocity wind loads. The building is placed into this category does not mean the building is unsafe under normal load conditions. So basically what they're saying is before you occupy the building, you need to fix all this stuff. And so they gave us responses with what they thought at the time could be proposed fixes, but they said that you could do it other ways. And then they gave a little bit of a timeline. You should do it before you occupy the building. You should do it before this. You should do it before that.
Identify everything before they go away.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Can you move back one slide?
Mm-hmm.
Updated the building documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I'll get into that in a little more detail. But
My concern is, did we do new documentation to fit where the building at now? Or did we do new documentation to say how far this building is off from where it should be?
so what that refers to is when WJE did their analysis, I gotta give them credit. They didn't just look at kind of like, okay, here's the deflection issue and here's maybe some other structural issues. They examined everything. So they found errors and inconsistencies on some of the documentation, which required clarification, or one document needed to be updated to match this document because this document was correct, but this document just either didn't say it or the figure was wrong. And so what they asked for, when they found that issue, they asked for additional, documentation that wasn't provided to them initially, and or reports that the city generated through its inspections to verify that those things happened. And then so they told AECom and TT, you need to go back in there, because it's important to them that as you're moving forward with the building, once it's completed, and 20 years down the road you want to do something else, you need to look at those documents and they need to be complete and accurate so you know what you got. If you want to expand the building or put another floor on it or what have you.
I think you're asking, do they provide as built, not as designed?
That's all I'm
Okay,
asking,
okay,
that's all I'm
so
asking.
then they would provide as built.
Yeah.
And I'm one that usually sit in these meetings and don't talk at all. And but sometimes, because we are looking, like you said, 20 years down the road, and I don't think I'm gonna be here then, so I have to ask my question now, if you don't mind.
Does that answer you for right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My question is, phase 2 review is complete, they've submitted their their reviews?
Not quite. I'll show you what I'm talking about. They're still talking about a couple of different things. So, just to get into serviceability and life safety, the complete buildings pertains to the completed building's ability to perform satisfactory without excessive deflections, vibration. Like I said, buildings do move, but it's got to be within a certain parameter. And then documentation, that's kind of going with what Mr. Walters was talking about, or what I was responding to Mr. Walters. So I'm going to get into, there are 16 findings in the phase 2 report. I'm going to get into those. Several of these are interconnected with each other. You'll see what I mean as I start to move forward with it. But this one is probably the biggest one. And this is the one that they're still working on. That's why I can't tell you it's complete yet. So basically what this means is for the lateral loads that are placed on the building, WJE, based on the information they got in the draft report, said that you don't have enough shear wall capacity. However, TT has responded, and this goes to an item on number 15, which is almost at the end of the list, that they have partially grouted masonry walls that are acting as shear walls. So that's what they're trying to figure out now. Initially, WJE was very circumspect about using those types of structural walls versus shear walls. They've since come around with the additional information that they've gotten from TT and clarification on how the building was constructed, that they could work. However, now they're concerned with how those masonry walls are tied into the individual slabs. The ties that are used by TT, while not uncommon in Florida construction, have not fully been tested. In other words, it's not an off-the-shelf solution. Not that you can't use it, you can. It's just, it's an alternative versus an off-the-shelf solution. So what WJE right now is saying is that if you want to fix this quickly today, you can use an off-the-shelf solution. And that's why I said earlier it might be over-engineered at some point because they don't have the full figures for those ties now, which do have a value, right? But then they go in and they put in these things, they look like L brackets basically, and you pin them to the walls and you pin them to the structural supports, and then it ties it all together so it doesn't. But this is the big one. So this one would take care of number 15. I believe it also takes care of number 2, number 7, and maybe one more. If they resolve this, there's like a handful of them that just go away. The others have all been pretty much fundamentally either fully resolved or we're working through the building services department permitting process to get them resolved.
Just for the record, who's paying for all this again?
So again, we're going to recoup that. We're going to recoup that from AECom through their errors and omissions. But right now, we are paying for it because our contract is with Moss. They do not have a contract with AECom. We have to get the work done, and someone has to pay for them. It's not their problem, right? They built it. They built what was designed and given to them. This is an AECom issue, so the architect is the problem in this case. Number 2 are shear wall foundations. This is tied to number 1. This is why if you resolve it, number 2 goes away, or unless you put in the shear wall, then you have to do additional foundation work. This is problematic just because The area that's been, one of the areas that's been identified where you could put a shear wall, there's a duct bank going right under the floor. So for those of you who don't know what a duct bank is, pipes that carry cables and plumbing and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be hard to move if we do have to do that. So hopefully there's an alternative solution. The graphic's just pointing out kind of where these are in the building. Column foundations, there was 3 footings that were seemed to exceed the soil design capacity. However, this has been rectified through additional reports that were provided by the geotechnical company. I'll get into the updates in more detail in just a minute. It says side bearing. It should say slide bearing. Sorry for that. So this portion of the building, which is basically where all the police department will live and function, and this portion of the building, which is the community center, are tied together right here at these 2 beams. Because of the type of building it is, they act kind of independently, even though the naked eye they look like one structure. The slide bearing that was installed didn't have the correct capacity. So WJE initially said, well, you need to take out that slide bearing, put in the larger slide bearing so that they can move correctly and it's all fine. The company that makes the slide bearings said you don't have to do that. What you really can do is just put in additional slide bearings on either side. So that's an actual structural enhancement that they're working on right now. They're trying to do the calculations on how to lift it up to get that space wide enough to slide in those new bearings, put it back down, and then put everything back together. Structural integrity code provisions. So again, this had to do with some of the numbers that were provided. This one, I believe, has been taken care of through additional data and information that was shared between the 2 firms showing that what they provided did work. And so WJE was okay with it. Column axial flexural capacities. So this one's interesting. Apparently the Florida Building Code allows for an alternative submission if you want to do something different from what's in the code. So the best way I can try to explain this is the code will tell you if you build it this way, it meets everything and the state of Florida is fine with it.
They already did some building it without the code.
So, but the Florida Building Code allows for an architect or engineer to come up with something different and submit it. And as long as it meets all the load calculations needed, you can do that. So right now, this is one of the things that's been sent to the building department for consideration. So basically it found out of the 24 columns, 8 of them were overstressed by more than 10%. But because of this alternative and how they handled the way the structure was built, and if you need more technical background on this, I can have someone else come and talk to you about the more details, but this is the way I understand it. This will probably go away as long as those loads are calculated to an extent that meets the building code requirements for a Category 5 hurricane rated building. Column shear capacities. This has to do with the spacing of the ties. So they were supposed to be 10 3/4 of an inch. They were specified by the engineer of record at 12 inches, which again, they were able to demonstrate that that calculation works and it's totally fine. WJ at first had identified this as a problem, but now they agree that it is not a problem. And then roof beam capacities. This had to do with the weight of the mechanical equipment on the roof. I guess the Florida Building Code says something to the effect of that it should be 150 pounds per square foot, and it wasn't done to that amount. But what the code also allows you to
That's the dead load as opposed to the live.
It's the dead load, right? Because there's one about live loads here in a second. So the dead load of the mechanical equipment was not needed at 150 pounds per square foot. So I think what it really only needs, it might be getting these numbers a little bit wrong, is 80 pounds per square foot, but what it's designed to is like 120 pounds per square foot. So there's capacity there if you want to put something heavier on the roof. But as technology has evolved, more of these air conditioning units have gotten a lot lighter, so I can imagine that you would probably need it. But we do have the capacity there. So that was basically just, it resulted in an update to the documentation to show that those loads were correct based on the package that we have sitting on the rooftop. So now we get into the other capacity of serviceability. This has to do with roof drift. Again, I mentioned that those two structures kind of function separately from each other. This, lateral loads and movement of the building. They have also determined that this is not an issue anymore. When they got the additional calculations and clarifications to their questions, this item went away, and so it's been fully resolved. Building period, this has to do with vibration. Again, this was another one of those things that WJE initially identified as a possible issue. However, more information, more data resolved this issue, and they don't feel like it's a problem anymore.
Let me ask a question while you're coming through here. As far as, there's been a great deal of movement and vibration on top of the structure. Has anyone gone far enough to look at the pilings to make sure that there are, if there's like vibration and they lose the friction?
Yeah.
If there's any testing on the pilings, 1 and 2 is, make sure that there's nothing wrong with them.
I don't believe they did any additional testing, but they did get the reports from the geotechnical engineers, as well as any of the reports that were results of inspections to go through those, and they've not identified anything. Concrete cover depth. This was an inconsistency between two of the drawings, basically showing how much cover depth you have with rebar. They found that it was correct. It just wasn't noticed correctly on one of the plan sets, so they fixed that. And documentation, basically the column schedule, the loads indicated for the design criteria, and the mechanical equipment loads. Those were all corrected. So those were errors that were found on the plans, nothing that resulted in the need to do anything structural to the building, so that's all been corrected as well. And then you have the last two items, which, like I said, are tied to the first item. So the masonry walls, the partially grouted masonry walls, once you resolve either item 1 or item 15, it makes some of those other items go away, and number 16 would go away as well because it has to do with the modifiers used to show what those connections are. So here's where we are today. Out of the 8 items that are listed in the life safety, we have the one big one, the shear wall. And then we have 2 that are conceptually resolved pending additional information. I'm getting more detail there. All others have been resolved. Under serviceability, 1 item is fully resolved. We have 1 waiting additional information and 1 pending, let's see, oh, yeah. There was 1 connected in serviceability to items 1 and 15. It's probably the one that I missed earlier. And then under documentation, 3 are fully resolved. And then we have the 16 and 15, they're also tied to number 1, which is the shear wall. So this is just restating that a little bit. Shear wall's pending, foundation pending, the foundation caps, the slide bearing, the structural integrity, the column axial flexural capacity, column shear capacity, roofing capacity have all been resolved, with a couple of them having to go through the permitting process with DSD to ensure that they got all the proper paperwork. Similar with serviceability, community room and lobby area, that's been resolved pending updated information. Number 10, the building period will be resolved once you resolve 1 and 15. And then cover depth was resolved with that correction. And then under documentation, very similar, everything's resolved except for 15 and 16, which are tied to item number 1. That's where we are today.
Just an observation, it looks like WJE did a really good job.
They did a very, very thorough job, and I got to give them and TT and AECOM some credit. I don't know if you noticed those dates, but when we first figured out that happened in March of 2024, we're still dealing with phase 1. We've got that fiber reinforced polymer going in. It's over, about a year and a half later. However, they did that full report. They have been meeting consistently multiple times a week over the summer. I've been involved in most of those meetings. Staff has been there, and they're really just pushing information back and forth as quickly as possible to try and figure out what a workable solution would be for each one of those items.
Does the cost of bringing in the third party go into the errors and emissions
Yeah.
category, okay.
Yeah, anything that is a result of that deflection, we're putting under errors and omissions. And they have been on the record verbally saying that they will pay for the cost of third-party engineers.
And then Anthony, there's still other buildings on that building site, the old stuff is still there, and what's the story about the tower?
Okay, so the state of Florida is building a new tower. It's going to be by the Juvenile Detention Center, just west of I-95 and Broward Boulevard.
Okay.
They are currently getting ready to submit to the DRC for that. The idea there is once they build the new tower, we will relocate our equipment over there and that tower can come down. But until that point, all that equipment stays. One of the issues with demoing the existing building, the previous police department headquarters, was two. We've got to abate the building for lead and asbestos, and so that is still being analyzed, but they're almost done with that. And then we have to relocate the radio equipment out of that building into the shelter that we put at the base of the tower. So that has been a lot more of a hassle than we really realized originally. We got some information from Motorola. We spec'd out the building the way we felt they told us to, and then they came and looked at us and said, oh, no, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. So we fixed it, and then they came back like, no, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. I mean, it's just been a struggle with them. They won't even really come out to assess relocating the radio equipment until they know that building is ready to accept it. So we're constantly in this back and forth with them. We think we're there. So
This is the building at the new tower.
No. This is the existing tower next to the existing abandoned police department headquarters.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so you've got to move stuff into the
Yeah.
building at
For the radio
security-
equipment itself, there's gonna be like two steps to this. First, we're moving out of the old building, the abandoned police department headquarters, and putting it into a new structure at the base of the existing tower.
Okay, I understand.
Then, when the new tower is
Gotta do it
constructed,
again.
we'll move everything over there. But we
Okay,
can't demo the building until we get that radio equipment.
got it, okay, thank you. And what's the plan then for that property?
So, where you see the existing building now, when that goes down, there's additional site work. There's some parking back there, there's some drive aisles, there's some landscaping, that kind of stuff. As far as the remainder of the property as you're moving west, there are no plans right now. There's been some things suggested that we could do with the property, if it would be affordable housing or something like that, but nothing's concrete.
Because that was considered as part of the city hall, this potential city hall site at one time.
There was talk about it at one point, but that never really manifested into anything.
Do we have any third-party leases on our tower? That's what I used to do. So, like, are we renting tower space to AT&T or Verizon? So we don't have to worry about any of that
It's
building?
it's all public sector.
No impact from the private property owner on the east side of the police.
Oh, yeah. No, there was impact. Unfortunately, the acquisition of that property took a lot of time, and we weren't able to enter into our contracts until after COVID. So before COVID, we thought it was going to be maybe an $85 to $90 million project. After COVID, it jumped up to about $145 million. So yeah, that had a big impact. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but it delayed everything. And when we negotiated the final construction manager at-risk contract, all those prices had gone up. So Moss's cost was almost $120 million in total. And that was just for hard administrative. But we had other soft costs we had to put in for that.
One thing you can say about the city's people is it developed a great deal of equanimity in dealing with all these damn problems that have occurred on the police station. Unbelievable.
I've learned a lot, but I don't want to do it again.
So the next step is the engineering solution to that lateral wall, right?
Yes, so right now, it's just about the connection points. There's two paths we can go down, the off-the-shelf solution that I mentioned, or they can test. So there's all these testing protocols that have to do with those kind of engineered components. Apparently, it's pretty robust and will take some time. They have to build models, models have to cure and all this stuff. We may not be interested that much about the cost because we're going to try and recuperate it for under errors and emissions, but there's time associated with that.
That's what I was going for. It's like, do we have a target date for a fixed date?
We're waiting to hear. Right now, ironically, today was the day the project was supposed to be finished completely. I had it marked on my calendar for the original contract was supposed to be September 8th. So obviously blown past that. We intended on getting into the building by December of this year. However, that's been delayed by about a month under the current conditions. We're not talking about phase 2 yet. So if phase 2 wasn't an issue, it would be in the building probably in January. Right now, we're trying to figure out what's going to happen as a result of a time delay for that additional testing or an additional structural enhancement that we may want to have happen. So what that's going to take is some additional information from TT, WJE, and Moss to kind of scope that out and let us know what it is. I don't know what it is. We're looking at possibly 2-3 months, but I'm not sure.
Anthony, are they able to do any of the interior stuff, or do we have to solve all these
I
problems?
walked in that building today, you'd think that they could occupy it tomorrow. It's pretty much done inside.
So the interiors are
Yeah, so what Moss did
so
was.
like those brackets or whatever, those super.
Yeah, so if those have to go in, some of that finishing work will have to come down. And
Then you
then
go, you like the plumbing is in for the
Everything's
toilets
in,
and all that stuff.
everything's functioning. Matter of fact, they finished the punch list for the 3rd floor last week or the week before. So it looks like and feels like a completed building.
Stretching here, is there any way, we're having to extend our leases wherever the police are working coming out, can we stick some of those extended lease costs into those initiatives?
That's what we're doing. And anything that was a
Everything.
result of that, anything that resulted from that deflection issue, we are sticking with it. And we've told them that that's our intention.
Negotiate it down, but start high.
Likely, but we want to make sure we put everything on there that's, I want to be fair to them. If it wasn't for that, we're not going to do
You'd be in there today.
Yeah, but we would be in there.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I have
You're
to go.
welcome.
My last question is, for all the changes, railroad, all that other good stuff, what is it that the city is fronting the money for and hoping to get back? How
So
much?
right now, just for the deflection, I'm not including rent and capital, but just for the deflection, we're about 4.5 million. But that number is going to increase, obviously. But right now it's at 4.5, 4.4.
Haven't been fair to us. I'm good.
Yeah, I think they are. Susan Grant has got a good relationship with them. She was able to extend it once before, once we found out there was a deflection issue, so we extended it for this year. We'll see what happens if we go back to them for another request. I anticipate no problem.
Anthony, what's the plan for the use of that internal space that's part of that overhang part? What is that going to be? Is that
Oh, you're
Is
talking
that
about like
meeting rooms
just
or
down here?
above it? The
This
third
up here?
floor. Yeah, what is it, offices? What is
That's Bill Schultz's office.
Okay.
I think that's his assistant. There's a conference room, and then there's a different office.
So administrative offices across the
It's all offices. He's got a great view of the city.
A lot of moving traffic around.
Yeah, he'll get to see it firsthand.
Any other questions anybody has?
Very good. Regarding a visit, like I said, I'll lead, but I don't, I'm not familiar with this board very much. I don't think it's going to be an issue if multiple members of the board.
Well, I had asked District 1 Commissioner Herbst if I could go out to the site and that I would not be involved or get in anybody's way, but I just wanted to give a visual look-see. I don't have a drone, so I could. Just to look, just as a thought, I probably won't see anything, but then again,
Most of what I'm talking about is covered up at this point.
Yeah.
There's very few things that are still exposed. There's still some, because of the fiber wrapping, the columns on this floor, you can still see those. Everything else is closed.
So
there's
can we,
no testing on the actual pilings that were in there, because I understand there was a lot of like groundwater that was going through there.
I'm not aware of any groundwater issues with it. I mean, obviously they do water in front of the project, but as far as the piles are concerned, they did do a lot of enhancements on those 4 elevation points. So there weren't micro piles before. They went down 35 plus feet. 45 was the bedrock, and then they drilled into the bedrock and put the micro piles in the gaps.
So they've checked it
Yep.
essentially and everything's okay.
So, can we do a group walkthrough?
I don't see why not. If that's your preference, I'm okay with that. I go every Friday, but I tell everybody I'll go whenever you want, as long as the calendar works out.
So,
That would be good if we could.
can you
find
facilitate
those
that
interested.
for us?
Just a notice meeting.
But they're not quasi judicial.
I think they should use social or public participation. Yeah, I think there's challenges.
So probably best if you went one at a time, so you didn't have to notice it. If that's the case, I would suggest go one at a time. Happy to do it as many times as you want. We'll have Moss there, have someone from AECon there as well.
Take note.
Yeah.
I'm good with you. What are you doing Friday, Ralph? He's gonna go.
This Friday, huh?
Go every Friday at 8 a.m., but I can go whenever. It's easier for Moss on Fridays and I think Thursdays, just because there's less activity around the building. And they're not as quite as busy organizing everything.
Trying to think if I got something here Friday, I'll have to check, but let's put it on Friday,
Okay. Once you let her know,
okay? Let's be able to, coordinate, where we meet and where we go and what time. Is there anybody else in here that wants to? Go? You'd like to see it? Okay, maybe, we've been on had to be some projects where we were together, but we weren't able, obviously, to speak.
We can't talk.
Can't talk to one another.
I mean, if this has to be noticed, I would suggest don't go together and don't notice it because then it becomes a public thing. You know, I can't have a bunch of people traipsing around the building, but just one at a time. Totally happy to work around your schedules and see what you can figure out.
All right, well, why don't, Jim, if you want to go and I want to go, anybody else here wants to partake? Okay.
It will be the grand opening, so you can see it.
We'll be there. If there's a hurricane, I might go too, so, it'd be the best place to be.
Okay, but we'll get together and set up a time convenient for you and Jim do the same thing, so we can at least be on the site and look at it. I've been on there a couple times before all this happened.
Yeah.
I was the person that looked at the original. The fact that the city, just like any government agency, they do their own inspections as opposed to having regulatory type other independent doing that. That's I don't know if that's the problem, but it probably could be. All right. Together afterwards here. That's enough there. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Excellent. I still have some hair to pull out.
Yeah, mine's turning gray. So
That's the first stage.
the
And then,
project's going to take 3 years off my life.
thanks again.
You're welcome.
All right, and moving forward here, continuing. Update on the water treatment plant, including the PFAS treatment testing.
Yeah, so not much on PFAS. David Fisher, Senior Project Manager for Public Works. The PFAS testing, the pilot's getting here at the end of September, got pushed back a little bit. I think maybe y'all were thinking about the PCCT pilot. That arrived a few months ago and they were just putting it together, setting it up and commissioning it. So that's, right now they're conditioning the pipes and they anticipate the actual testing to begin in January. So there's end of September, the pilot should be getting here. It'll take them a few months to set it up and commission it. So I think by the end of the year, it's up and running.
You have a presentation or just an update on?
Just an update, just a verbal
condition?
update.
That would be fine.
Just generally what's been going on. Construction's 90% done. If you were to go there today, you'd see all the buildings, all the structures, all the tanks, all the equipment, all the pumps. That's all there. The major work now is just tying everything together. So pulling all the wire, the above ground piping. They started dry commissioning in June, so that means they're actually physically testing things, making sure what electricity is getting to it.
Has the two deep well injection, well, I guess go down about 3,000 feet.
One is complete. They cleared it with DEP a little while ago. The second one is about 90% done. So then they'll have to commission that one. So those are on schedule. And towards the end of this month, they're actually going to begin wet commissioning. So if you guys saw the little notice that the city put out the other day, that was because of that. So things are generally going well. On track.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Are you talking about the water changing?
Yes. So
Okay.
that has to do with that. So we're obligated to give them a certain amount of water today to test. So we're going to isolate a portion of the well field, and they're going to get those wells. And a couple of those wells are the ones that 5-Ash likes to use because they're low on color.
Okay, so can I ask you a little bit about this? Are you
Sure.
Okay. So I got this on Friday, September 5th at 5:06. And how long has this been planned? I want to know. This that part of the plan.
So the reason it came so late is we were trying to figure out how to isolate the well field and do least impact the 5-Ash. So we probably finalized the plan 2 weeks ago. And we wanted to run it through staff and run it through PIO. So that's
Because, in my opinion, this is really short notice.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
So I would think that it would be on your timeline or your project plan that you know about this a lot sooner and you could give more warnings to the public than
I agree.
a weekend. Okay. Just
Yeah, Jim,
stating my opinion.
I think staff management had the same position that we'd like to give as much time as possible, but I think in this case, there's not really an impact other than the color of the water.
And you may not see anything. It was just we just wanted to be proactive and say, hey, you may see it.
And I appreciate that, but I think that, if somebody looks at this and says it's happening on Monday and this is Friday at 5 o'clock,
Understood.
okay. Thank you.
So other than that, I don't know if you've seen the city job postings, but we're hiring for about 8 new positions at the plant. So those are
This guy wants a job, I think.
brand new facilities.
Yes, I don't think so.
Okay.
The big water main that's going from Prospect to 5-Ash, that's done. All the enabling works are underway.
All the valving and everything is in place.
Most of it is. So the remaining work is doing all that above ground stuff, but all the underground's done.
Nobody out there with digging so they can
Break it up.
No. That's half the reason we transferred some of those projects from the city to project companies so that no other contractor would get in there, potentially get there if they hit something.
FPNL. Excuse me. Okay, well, so the PFAS we're going to discuss. I guess the coloration is the pockets of iron.
Yeah, it's just some of those wells just happen to have natural higher levels of colors. So this time next year when the plant's online, there'll be no color. So
Good.
Why are you smiling?
That's
people
grimacing.
don't believe me when I say that, but
I thought it was grimacing. I didn't. Anything about the PFAS or anything more specific here?
not since the last update. No. I think the EPA pushed out the compliance date, I think, to 2031. So we have more time.
Gotcha.
But we're fairly optimistic that between managing the well field correctly and kind of tweaking the type of membranes that are in the system, that we'll be able to do it. This is just, we just gotta confirm it.
That should be interesting.
That's a huge deal.
That's a big deal.
So we should see results preliminary results at the beginning of the year. So.
Wow. Okay. Anybody have any other questions or concerns? Okay. Thank you very much. discussion from anybody on the three areas that we've just got through?
I only have one thing. I think I'm the person that requested all three of these. I won't do it again.
You've learned your lesson. That's
Put your head in the sand.
okay. All right, let's keep moving on here. The Public Works update, the CIP financial report. We've got that in here.
It's part of my package, but
It's also
You kind of pull it up on the screen.
okay.
I frankly don't know how to review that data. I mean, I guess I could ask the,
One of the questions that they.
any surprises, any budget surprises come up in the last month that you want.
I mean, there really haven't been any changes. There are no significant changes since.
No significant changes, but Shannon and I came so that we could answer any questions you may have and kind of explain the chart to you if there's any misunderstandings on what the information there is.
Okay.
So, what's this, what we did with, this first, the water and sewer bond expenditure summary, we color coded it this time by the, funded projects you see at the top, so you can kind of, if you're looking for what projects pertain to the 5-ash upgrades, GTL updates, I&I, sewer basins, force mains, you can kind of follow where they are in the, breakdown below. So when you, let's see when this gets there.
That helps. I thought
And then when you have so we added another spreadsheet that they will be pulling up as well. So this one just shows any projects that had the bond project funding. So when you see the percentage spent to date, that's not a reflection of the entire project status on what's been spent to date. That's just for the bond funded portions of the project. So we've added another spreadsheet to the package that has it broken out by the project. So it'll show all the funding sources kind of, you'll see them broken out, and then you'll see the summary to show what the true percentage spent to date is of the project. Now this spent to date percentage is not a reflection of necessarily where the project is in its completion phase. That's something that our engineering staff would have more information on, but this is just on, from the financial standpoint, what's been spent to date. And then if you look further in on the columns, so after the percentage spent to date, we have what the project budget is. Again, this is just for the bond portions of the projects of the budgeted amount. And then the actuals, that's the spent to date, that's money out the door that's already been spent. So, and then the following column, your commitments, that is where we show any money that's currently committed for to be bids, most likely, that are in the process of going out to be awarded. And then your encumbrances are any purchase orders against the project for any of your design, construction costs. And then your remaining balance is the balance taking all that into account, your actual spent commitments and your encumbrances. Is there any way we can get if you guys, I don't know if you have any questions on this color code one, I
have one question. If I'm understanding this correctly, does it ever happen that you're at 100%? Oh no, it's not. This is percent spent, so it's always going to be zero if you're at 100. Okay. Are you ever at 100% completion of the project but still have, say, 97% monies left? Okay. So that doesn't show on this.
Not on this one. On the next spreadsheet they're gonna go over to, it'll show the summary of the entire project.
Okay.
So and actually it does to a certain degree. So if you go to the page above real quick, I'm sorry. So you,
Here?
yeah, this one right here. So come up here real quick.
Yeah.
So you'll see we have a project in one here.
Yeah.
Showing at 100%. We still have a little over $1,000 in the project.
Okay.
We will keep a small portion of funding in projects during the warranty phase, just in case something comes up and we need some additional funding for project management fees or there's something else that needs to take place. But in general, what will happen is if there are funds there after the project is 100% complete, the warranty phase is complete, we will move those into another project that either needs those
That's what I
funds or
thought,
budget.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And who tracks where that goes, or how do you decide where it goes, if there's any leftovers?
So 99% of the time, there's a need for that money in another project.
Yeah.
There's rarely ever an instance where we don't have a need for that money.
I understand.
But in order to move that, we do take it back to the commission and we let them know we're moving that as part of a budget amendment for.
So you make a recommendation to city commission and they decide it, they probably.
They will approve it. We're gonna make the recommendation on
Yeah.
those funds.
And they decide if it's okay and so you make the recommendation based on where you see the greatest need is, et cetera.
Yes, so we'll say staff, not specifically us. We get together with the engineering division, decide where they need those funds, and then as a department of public works, we'll
Okay.
decide.
Alright, thank you.
I only see one number also at the bottom, yeah, negative 53. Is that the only over budget project at the end?
So
So how-
there's a couple other ones on the next page that have like a negative 11,000. There's one, some of these we are working through some issues with our financial system. It's doing a double income, double posting. So we're working with our finance team for the city to kind of rectify those negatives to make the projects back whole again. So we're working through those issues.
That's a lot of money, that's not much. Thank you.
And then I don't know if they wanna just show the other spreadsheet just real quickly. I think it was, we rolled it up, let me see if she can get that up. No, it's
the one that's all blue.
it's on the blue, sorry.
We don't have any colored version, it's just all. I was gonna recommend maybe sometime when we have these type
There you
of
go.
charts, that maybe you could put them sideways where we could get it expanded.
Yeah, probably be,
I'm blind in one eye, can't see out of the other, even with glasses on, but.
no, I understand, we can ask that.
Yeah, we can work with the administrator here to try and make sure those come out properly.
Okay, I mean, it'd be easier to see.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then this, so this spreadsheet here, this is just taking everything you saw on your bond report, if it had another funding source associated with the project, it's listing all the funding sources associated with it. So you'll get a little clearer of a picture when it shows like sped to date. You'll see like the first project up here, this force main from pump station, 35 to D36 upsize. You'll see that the entire budget for that is 1.1 million, 1.13 is spent to date, and you'll see the zero balance. So you kind of see a little bit more. You won't just see a piece of the project funding, but you kind of see what the whole picture of what that project.
The total funding for the project. If I'm gonna make a recommendation, when you're looking for project spending, up top is gonna give you the best idea of where everything is currently, where the programs are as a whole. This bottom section, if you really wanna dive into those projects, but if there is one where you look at it and you have questions, then I would ask the team to bring forward the actual project slides. Those will give you a better idea.
And that top chart is like a summarization,
Yep.
right, of all these stuff that's going on.
My main thing, which we don't see, is job change orders. So did a large job change order come in that taking us by surprise that we can't budget, that we can't handle in the budget?
So as far as change orders go, that wouldn't be tracked within this. We do have within ETS, there's a change order section where they do track the change orders there. And then the project manager could provide specific updates. If you wanted an overall list of, hey, here's all the change orders that came on, say,
It's
monthly
gonna be a
basis,
lot.
that's something that could be provided.
It's just, I mean, I know the project team and the management team, that's what they handle. Change orders come in, is this warranted, how do we handle it? I mean, I don't think, we're not gonna help make that any better.
Agreed, and anything that exceeds the threshold has to go to commission anyways for approval.
All right, now I understand the process.
Let me go out in the hall and get somebody in. So, if I can do anything.
Thank you. I appreciate all you.
Okay. Any questions or anybody have anything?
And you can answer our questions, so.
I can't question what I can't see.
If you want a copy, I can give you, I have a blown up version if you guys want. Sure.
That might have been helpful before, but right now, but just maybe in the future, then we could get something. I mean, that's. That's really. I mean, even with glasses on, magnifying glass, I can't.
I mean, as I said, we've seen this before, I don't know how to make this straight.
Maybe if you got it in Braille and we knew what. No,
Yeah, we can work with our staff to get that, blown up and in color for you guys.
Well, can you just give a quick summary again on what everything looks. Anything out of line, anything that looks like it's not going to make the target date or?
So, and that's another thing, there is no specific target date for this. This is just looking at, we have the pool of funds, this is the percentage that's been spent, you can see what it's being spent on. If you're looking more for a target date for when the spends are gonna take, you would really have to look at a project by project, not an overall look at the program.
I'm just trying to squeeze some more information out before we.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
The question on project dates is, are all the projects looked at by a project board or director of project management?
So we do CIP development every year. So I think during that process is when the priorities for the projects are kind of looked at for the department, and we spent a few months as a department kind of going through it from starting with the project management up to meeting with our director to make those recommendations that then become part of the adopted budgets at the end of the year, beginning of the fiscal year.
But if you're referencing like project schedules and like
Project
the
schedules are
guidelines,
like on time.
yeah, so that's not necessarily our team.
I understand.
That more falls under the project management team, and they do have the FLQ staff meetings where they review specific projects and their project schedules. And then within ETS, they are required to provide updates to the project schedule anytime that changes.
All right, any questions, any further questions or any comments? Thank you very much, appreciate it. Moving right along. So we got the general discussion or something like that. Water sewer breaks. Oh, water. Sewer breaks.
Are they in here, there are breaks?
Yeah.
There it is, that's it. Go back. Go back.
So.
Yeah, nothing major.
It's
Gravity block H3 spilled up. Fatberg.
Who handles that now that Omar's not here?
What's that?
Who gives us the report on breaks?
Which kind of breaks?
Yep.
What are you talking about? I am not familiar. I don't even know where that list comes from, actually.
You don't have anybody in here that can
he just would briefly touch on
Here,
that.
I do recall they were making a map, so there is a map that the city had in the asset management group, which is part of strategic communications under public works. I don't know, Brad, if that might be Ingrid or who that would be.
We can check and see.
We get this report.
We get the-
Usually it's pretty standard, I mean, they break where they break and
Can we fix them?
Yeah,
but
we just look for reaction time and whether we'll fall out of compliance, might get noticed by the state or something.
We'll take care of it.
There was one attachment at the end for a spill report. 3100 Northeast 48th Street.
Still reported to their environmental.
Right. So one of them actually went into the intercoastal up by commercial.
yeah, that's a big problem with the regulatory agencies, in the waterway. Alright.
I just had going on to general discussion, I had one question. FPL undergrounding projects, are these being reviewed by the city? And then here's what brought up, I was talking to a neighbor in another neighborhood, FPL was doing an undergrounding project. And then they said that AT&T and Comcast were not participating and they weren't undergrounding the cables. So FPL said, well, we put the power lines under lines, but the poles are still there. And I'm like, who helps push Comcast and AT&T and the other ones to participate in the undergrounding project? Because it would be better for all of us if all the cables are underground, not just the power. And I don't know if anybody who facilitates that with FPL. Because FPL's response was, well, we invited them, they didn't want to do it, so we did ours.
I think it's an FPL initiative. I don't think the city has anything to do with it.
So those would be franchise utility permits handled at DSD. However, there's no obligation to force AT&T to go underground.
But okay, in a situation where AT&T has decided to do it, right? Can the city encourage Comcast or the other carriers, telecom carriers in the area, to participate?
I don't see us reaching out to them and telling them to go underground.
We have on occasion, at the request of others, gotten involved. It typically doesn't result in much change from what they're doing.
Then that's
We
okay.
don't have an official, like you said, we don't have an official program.
I can't think of any other than the city, anybody else who could step in and say, you really should do it all together, right?
Well, it used to have a utility organization be in charge of all of the utilities, whether it's Comcast or whatever, and everything, to make sure that they were all not in conflict with one another. I guess they did away with that. I thought it was a pretty good idea back in the
When was that?
80s.
No, 80s.
Are you talking about the Property and Right-of-Way Committee? Is
No,
city organization?
it was generally just the utilities. It was a utilities company that not a utility, some company that was involved with all the utilities. And so
Probably
they
before
were,
my time at the city, it doesn't sound
and
familiar.
I think they did away with it back in the probably late 70s or 80s.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in that topic back then.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was still something like that going on. Apparently not.
I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
Okay. All right.
Ralph, I guess. And this might be too detailed for this, just something to look for information moving forward. The A7 basin is split to A5, is that correct?
It will split, yes, to A5.
Has that been funded yet, or is that in design?
So it's funded. Design was pending the site.
Okay.
Location.
Has that been selected yet? Loosely.
Loosely. I mean, we have some sites. I know the, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Oh, sanitary sewer lift
sanitary
station
lift
basin.
station basin, that's,
You know, we were hoping to put a one stop, but that's not,
right.
it's not gonna happen.
So site's not necessarily selected yet. So,
Not yet.
and then
But
design.
we're diligently working on that site because I know
you
people
are.
are waiting on it.
Yeah, I know you are. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
One small update, at your last meeting, you requested the presence of the city manager, and she has responded. She'll be at your next meeting, October 6th. She'll arrive around 3 p.m. So we should keep that in mind when you're preparing our agenda.
Should we discuss agenda for next meeting?
No, okay.
Is there any, would you like to discuss anything other than? Let's do the agenda, and I got one thing I wanna talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it.
After listening to Anthony's presentation about the police department,
I just responding.
I got one that happened, a couple. Several of the neighbors, knowing that I'm on infrastructure, same thing probably happens to you, right? Said, what's going on across the street? I live across the street from the tail end of Annie Beck Park. And all of a sudden, one day, a whole bunch of stones showed up, a bunch of graders. And it turns out that they're putting in, spending 700, I had to do the research, I didn't know. 700 grand to make a nice walkway through that lawn. For those of you not familiar with Annie Beck Park, it's about 25 feet wide, drops off of the west side of Victoria Park Road, runs from 4th Court all the way down to the actual Victoria Park. It's a long, narrow strip of forever wild, beautiful. So now they're putting in a super highway down through the middle of it so that people can launch their kayaks and canoes. That's great, I'm all for this, right? But there was one big omission. Where are you gonna park? So I reviewed the whole plan. Where are you gonna park to take your kayak and canoe off of your, and launch it? Because the entire strip along Annie Beck Park is a no parking zone. And it's totally residential on the other side.
So that's Parks
Parks and Recreation.
project?
It's a Parks and Recreation project. I didn't know anything about it. Think about it. The people in Victoria Park that live by me, half of them didn't know about it. They said, well, we came to the Victoria Park Civic Association meeting and said something. Did anybody ask about parking? No, because we figured the people would carry their canoes and kayaks. Well, it just so happens that there's a canoe and kayak launch point at actual Victoria Park where there's actually 3 parking spots. You come around that corner on Broward, you've got to be watching, not just for the ducks, but for the people taking their kayaks and canoes out there. This is problematic to me because it's a project that's not been thought out properly, and it's still $750,000.
That's great.
Right.
I saw the rocks, I didn't know what they were for either.
And
Could you contact your commissioner?
not yet. I wanted to bring it up here first because how many times do we sit in this meeting? Roosevelt's not here anymore, but how many times do we sit in this meeting and there's always an omission, there's always an oops, there's always a something that comes up because the planning wasn't done right. Now, all this stuff was approved in 2023. But the idea that that people are gonna show up with a canoe and a kayak, not on a car, is just wrong-headed. I'm a part of the Civic Association, I've spoken to the president of the Civic Association.
Yeah, I would direct it towards that district's commissioner or
somebody that Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, and both, and just let them know what the potential problems are as far as somebody coming in with a canoe on their boat, kind of go through little narrow area where I guess you were describing. I remember seeing something like that, a map showing that damn thing. It was real narrow and then
I think there could be a little bit more rigor placed in the planning stages of some of this stuff. Sidewalks notwithstanding.
Park and Rec Advisory, I think it's the last Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
Good idea, just half-assed.
So, under the guise of, part of the things we do is we review ongoing projects that are taking multi-years to phase out. Is it possible, could we ask administration to put together a list of what's been presented in the past, maybe go back a year or two even, and who presented and maybe the month it was presented? That way we can review and to see, have we missed something that should be refreshed? Okay, and I don't have a proposal for what needs to be reviewed next month.
I don't know specifically. If there are things that we need to look at, we can only make a recommendation to the powers to be.
I think we need to follow up with the status of becoming an advisory board, because we heard at the city commission meeting that it seemed like a good idea and there seemed to be consensus of the commissioners to do it, but I don't know what those steps are. And maybe the city manager can brief us on that, or somebody else. I think we need to find out what's going on with that. I would like to have seen it start like October, because that's the start of the fiscal year for the city, so.
Any way we can get the city manager to attend?
They're
Coming in October.
She's attending the next meeting.
Okay.
I can answer that though, Jim. I can answer that. I've had conversations with the city attorney's office, so we're
Oh,
working
okay,
on stuff.
thanks, Ben.
I don't think it will be done before the start of the fiscal year, but I think we have it, maybe the second meeting in October is where we have tentatively scheduled right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So did they have to write like an ordinance for it, or?
Yeah, there's some action we have to bring forth and have a vote on, so, we had a kickoff meeting, I think last Thursday, and we have a more substantial meeting coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can get some of the issues that we need.
Yeah, is there issue problems, or do you foresee problems or issues?
Creating it?
Yeah.
No, I think it's just the attorney's allocation of time and priorities and balancing needs right now. I have a follow-up meeting with the attorney assigned to it later this week, and so I can follow back up with you if you need an update before the next meeting.
One item that staff would like to add to your agenda is to discuss the triplex pumping station rehab. We plan on submitting this for a state appropriation, and want to discuss in hopes that you'll give us a letter of support.
Is that 824?
It's a bunch. It's A7, A8, A20, A22, A23, A27, A28, A29, A31, B4, and B9. It's not B9, B11, and then granted, like, you know, the state appropriation request is only so many dollars, so it's possible that, you know, the money could be for a portion of those. It might not cover all of them, but if it covers any amount of them, it would be great. But we'll discuss in more detail next time.
Okay, that's one thing. So two things.
You said are those all triplex stations? Wow.
Anybody else have any other subjects?
So you were asking about like, if I understood you correctly, ongoing projects, or what's the current list of projects
So
going?
we reviewed, like, you know, every meeting we review a different project, right? And like, I'd like to see what we reviewed in the past.
Oh, past review.
In the past, so it's just pulling out all the old meeting notes and just writing down a list of, we reviewed this project with this person on this month, right? And that way we can say, did we miss something that needs to be, you know?
I think we can do that.
Yeah, that shouldn't be hard. It's just, I could probably do it from the meeting notes, but it should be easy for you to do.
And what about current projects? Do you feel like you know what all the current projects are that we need to be aware of? Is that?
I'm hoping they'll show up on this list too, right? I'm hoping there's no projects that we're not aware of that have been, major projects that have been undertaken.
Well, isn't a past review about things that are completed? Is that which?
No, like the water, okay, as an example, the water main project, right? Or the water plant project. We reviewed it in the past, right? We asked for an update today, right? It's not yet done. And so it's like, okay, so I don't think we need to ask about it because we just did. We just did sidewalks. We've done, we haven't reviewed sewer issue, like ongoing sewer problems for a bit. But I don't think they're an issue. But I'm not sure, right? Just like that, like from a high level perspective, we know we're responsible for reviewing certain infrastructure, and we touched all those pieces. And you're bringing up a good question, are there any major projects that we kicked off for infrastructure?
Without our knowledge.
That we've not discussed?
Yeah, I mean, the regular water main replacements and the
Water,
sanitary
sewer,
sewer.
I mean, the list was up there in that
Yeah,
chart.
City Hall, I mean, we could look at the budget that they gave us, and I'm sure all that's in there, so. But I don't have anything else as far as agenda.
I presume that we're going to have a confrontation with regarding this committee as far as it continuing and whatever. I for one don't get the feel that we're able to contribute. Not that we don't want to, but I think we're kind of closed off. That's the feeling I'm getting, and we're not able to really attack a problem, try to work with the city, and come up with a resolution or a solution.
I think we've agreed the committee's gonna stay, right? And we are a mechanism for our neighbors to bring issues forward, and that's the value.
Just think there's an easier way.
There should be an easier way.
Well, I think, Ralph, that we have to see what are we supposed to be doing? Are we supposed to be like working with Public Works and providing all kinds of expertise and stuff, or are we just supposed to be representing our neighborhoods as people who are interested in infrastructure? I think that's part
Maybe
of
both.
the whatever it was, the core responsibilities of the committee, soon to become an advisory board. So we have to see what's getting written. I don't know, Ben, if that's something we can see in advance, that where we are with the new ordinance, so we get a sense of what it's suggesting.
As an example, Ben, I'm a telecommunications engineer. If you need help moving all that Motorola equipment, call me. I know how to do all that.
I personally don't, but Anthony probably does.
No, really, I used to work for Motorola, so I know.
Awesome.
Uh-oh.
No, I really, if you call, I'll help.
But these are good points. I mean, we're here as an advisory board, and we need to get the information and try to look at it with the expertise we have around these tables, and good or bad, and try to come up with a solution or recommendation from our perspective. And
yeah, sometimes we bring up issues, is this group talking to this group? Hopefully we'll bring up an idea that you guys can go, oh yeah, maybe I should have done that. You don't have to tell us you didn't do it. Maybe you just go back and do it, right? That's what I'm hoping, right? So we don't want to be wasting your time. So we appreciate everybody coming today.
Good. All right, let's try to wrap this thing up here. Guess that's our general discussion. And no public comments. Guess the next meeting is October the 6th.
I'll make a quick public comment.
comment just so you guys. So my name is Julio Tejeda, I'm with South Florida Water Management District. Just wanted to bring to you guys' attention that we're gonna be hosting the CNSF study draft tentative plan. That's the 203 basin, so basically the flood study for Broward County overall. We're gonna be hosting that tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Oakland Park EOC physically, but if you would like to attend virtually, we do also have a Zoom link at our website, sfwmd.gov. You can attend, you can write comments about what you think about the study, any comments or anything through there, so happy to see you guys there. Any questions, anything that has to do with the district, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you.
Do you have to pre-register to attend at the EOC?
To attend physically, you do not. You just arrive online, you do have to register and it'll send you a link.
Could you have that, say that link again, just so that,
So just, if you go to our website, so that's SFWMD, so South Florida Water Management District, just .gov, and then CNSF study, it'll show up right on the calendar with a registration link.
okay, gotcha. Anything else anybody around the table wants to say or comment on? Or don't let this happen again to me.
Are you okay?
Oh, wow.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You need a motion to adjourn?